do. It's going to be Ek0p playing against Masquadetv. I must admit I know very little about, but Ek0p has been around Hearthstone since the dawn of time. It seems like he's in everything.
Nod back to the early days there. I actually saw Ek0p at the airport as we were coming in, and I go, man, I haven't seen you in quite a long time. Where you been? He's like, what do you mean? I've been in every European DreamHack. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not in the States anymore, man. You used to be traveling all over the place. But he has been playing at a lot of the DreamHacks lately, as you get a glimpse of what he has been working on in the meantime with that beard of his.
He has worked hard on that beard.
But something that I talked with Ek0p about was a big one, was that he had just kind of taken a little bit of a step back to relax himself and just enjoy himself more while he's playing.
Yeah, and he's been doing a bit of casting as well here and there, so he's up to date with Hearthstone by virtue of casting stuff.
Yeah, but now we can take a look at the picks and bans as we do have them in for this match. And there you see it. Rogue banned away from Ek0p and Priest banned away from Masquade. So Ek0p's going with the very straightforward strategy here of he wants to play what he believes are the 4 best decks.
Yep.
And when you're doing that, you do not typically have the freedom to try and punish Priest in that scenario. So you ban away Priest and try to simply rely on the overall power and dynamic build of just the 4 best to get through the potential counter matchups. And which in the strategy that I typically favor. Yeah,
it's something that something like 60 or 70% of the field have to do in a tournament. So let's see what they have in their openers. Let's get into these mulligans.
Yeah, game number 1 getting underway between these two as we are still in round number 1 here at this event. And whoa, Nelly.
It's breakfast time. So eggs, meat wagons.
That's why it's called
meat and eggs.
I am stupid. I couldn't put that together.
Yeah, that's about all I know about the deck, though. You get some buffs to get the eggs going in, and it's pretty aggressive.
They're just waving out to the crowd now.
So much for bringing the stuff that he considers to be the best decks in the format. He's bringing one of the up-and-coming decks, which we've got up-and-coming decks with a week to go before a new set comes in.
That's right. I actually was talking with some players about this particular deck this morning. I didn't know that this was called Breakfast Priest. I was talking simply about how one of my opponents had played turn 1 Northshire into turn 2 Shadow Ascendant, into turn 3, and I went, I'm not kidding, Devilsaur Egg.
Yeah. This was a thing that came up. So I was casting another event recently, and this came up after deck submission for that event, so I didn't need to know much about this deck. I've caught up a little tiny bit in the meantime, but yeah, this is just crazy stuff going on. It's just absolutely insane buff, those things. Meanwhile, on the other side...
How do you think this matchup works? Like, who's favored in this one? I mean, not with turn 1 Northshire Cleric, from overhead perspective.
Overhead perspective, I mean, I'm always underrate the new stuff. Any new deck that comes along, I'm always skeptical, as Raven was saying earlier, but I feel that the Priest is probably slightly favoured in this one. It can hang in there with its eggs, get those 5/5s, and still trade on almost an equal footing. Like you say, though, the thing that makes that thing is this turn 1 Northshire into Shadow Ascendant. Without them, you've got to sort of work out how often that's going to come up, and maybe it's not actually that often.
Well, turn 1 Northshire, it is definitely a big beater. There's no question about that. But Masquade does have Coin Rallying Blade. However, Shadow Ascendant has now shut that off. We no longer have the viability of simply killing the Northshire Cleric on Team Mascade's side. He's got to find a different way to fight against this, which looks to me like it means he has to give up card draw.
Yeah, and when you start... If you lose the board with this Paladin deck, it just gets so difficult to achieve anything at all. So you've got to fight for it right from the outset. Otherwise, it just goes to pieces, and that's what he's going to do. He's going to put as much down as he can and just accept that if he can get some damage in here, maybe he can slow Ek0p down. If you can force him to heal to draw that card, suddenly you get some tempo back.
And this would be the turn to do it as well, going into Ek0p's turn 3. If he wants to use the heal to draw cards, what that means is that there's not a 3-cost minion coming down. So I like the way that Masquade is playing this. If Ek0p chooses to develop in the face of that, then Rallying Blade can actually kill a Northshire Cleric before that card draw hits some value.
So one way or the other, this will work out okay for him. He's on Team Oslo Lions, by the way, Masquade. They've brought 5 players from Norway to this event, just the same team. So players that I'm not particularly familiar with, but they're obviously seriously going for it. And he still doesn't really necessarily know the bad news that he's going to get egg on the face over the next couple of turns.
This could spell some trouble for Masquade. It depends on where this drop lands, though.
Yeah. That's where he wanted it.
That is where Ek0p wanted it anyway.
Sorry, yeah. If referring to the other player, that's not where Masquadetv wanted it in the slightest.
No Spellbreaker in hand, no way to mess with the Devilsaur Egg currently. But he does have Finja. And I think Finja is going to be a big player as we move into these next couple turns. It's going to take Ek0p a bit of time to get this Devilsaur Egg active. And that means Masquadetv's going to have plenty of time to actually get Finja safely on board. And when I say safely, I do mean in terms of his life total. Oftentimes when you're under pressure early on, by the time Finja comes down, you maybe have lost too much life. Your opponent can simply push through the value of it. In this set, Ek0p is not going to have that opportunity to simply push through it.
One of the really powerful things about this Priest deck is, of course, the AoE defense that it possesses. You can exert some pressure while simultaneously, not in this matchup, not so relevant, but if he wins this and goes on to the next one, the AoE defense, if we see this deck over and over again, is just so huge in the current meta.
Being able to Dragonfire with an egg on board.
Yeah, yep. Go for that. Have some of that going on. So Masquadetv
is looking to land that Finja into that Spike Ridge, and I think that playing stuff is a much better option than not playing stuff in that instance. He does give Ek0p the ability to actually activate Devilsaur Egg in this spot, but he's got to do something to fight back. He can't just give Ek0p back that time over and over again.
Yeah, you're not going to never give him this 5-5. At some point it has to happen. You just got to choose the terms on which you're willing to let it happen.
So now my question is it better to simply wait, play the Finja, and then go for it afterwards, or is it better to activate the Devilsaur Egg and then play the Finja to try to clear up either the extra minion or the Devilsaur Eggs afterwards? And Masquadetv points the weapon at Devilsaur Egg. I don't think he's actively thinking about that right now.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what that was about, especially just the 0-3 one. Like, something went through his mind there. He's like, no, hang on, I'm at DreamHack. Let's not do that today.
Maybe just trying to send Ek0p a message about, maybe he's like, hey, I have Aldor Peacekeeper in hand, or
yeah,
you know, some sort of weird thing going on there.
Weird things going on. This whole deck's a weird thing going on. Anytime you have eggs in your deck, weird things happen.
Inner fire gets drawn. Oh my gosh.
I have just wished the world could have seen that face.
Oh, that was an immaculate draw and discovery from Ek0p in success there. Where suddenly Masquadetv is in heaps of trouble.
Yeah, this Finja suddenly is like just way too slow. It's about his only option. He set it up last turn. And he does have Tyrion and Lich King, so there's defensive options, but it's going to be so slow.
Now, the benefit he has is I don't think that Ek0p is delivering a lot of burst damage in this instance. I think a lot of it's seated in just your board potential. Yeah. So he's got a lot of board potential, but he is going to have to get through a Spike Ridge Steed. He is going to have to get through some extra Murlocs here, and he's going to have to get through Lich King and Tyrion at some point as well. But with his own Lich King and the fact that Ek0p was going first in this game, I think he's got a little bit of an edge where the big boys race is concerned.
I was going to say, as long as he picks something good up, but that is a Kobold Scalebane. That is definitely something good he's picked up, and now the damage is going to come in at an incredible rate.
The Scalebane challenges the Spike Ridge Steed so well is the thing.
Divine Favor is not the best card in this situation. Admirable.
It is bad in this situation.
Discard 4 cards.
It is 3 mana, do nothing.
Yeah, I think you actually have to throw the cards.
It's just 3 mana, spell.
3 mana, I'm a spell.
It's just got flavor text at this point.
Buffs Yogg, which he might need to be in his deck to get out of this game. And Ek0p gets even a half-decent draw next turn, and this is going to be just painful, but it's already painful.
You see the problem of the Scalebane here, where he gets the easy hit through the first half, and then the 6-power egg that he discovered the Inner Fire for can eat through the second half, and then he gets to attack for 5 and do whatever he wants, and then get another buff from the Scalebane, which, by the way, is going to be sitting next to the Lich King.
Wow. The Discover effect is so powerful in this deck because there's not that many spells. There's not a huge number of spells. All right. Bottom right is activated.
Look at Mass. I feel bad for him in this situation, but it's tough to not smile in the face of what just happened. It's the first time that I've seen this deck perform quite that well in a tournament setting.
And Ek0p, his usual face of I knew that was going to happen.
Every single time I see Ek0p play tournaments, something he always talks about is he loves the deck building aspect.
Yeah.
He loves to use tools in ways that you don't expect, and he likes to be that outside the box thinker. And I'm curious what tone that set for the rest of this lineup, because something else to talk about is that Ek0p over the course of his career has favored control style of warlocks versus aggressive ones.
Oh, that's a good point, actually, yeah. So this could be any sort of lineup you like, and that's one of the things that DreamHack brings to Hearthstone in general. It's the only real major Last Hero Standing tournament, and so players play the DreamHack and then they sort of forget about Last Hero for maybe a month or two. So every time we come back, somebody does something like this and does well with it. Every single time there's some weird stuff happens here.
There's always that one guy.
It's usually Tars. It's the same guy every time.
Lately it's been.
Wonder what he's brought today.
Masquade's going to open with Wrath here on the Jade Druid side. Picks up Mire Keeper and Ultimate Infestation.
Look at Ek0p's hand again, though. The only thing he hasn't got is a way to activate the eggs. Everything else is already good to go.
Shadow Ascendant looking like could be a nice draw for him. Masquade accounting for exactly Northshire Cleric, and there's the Shadow Ascendant.
Oh my goodness. Shadow Ascendant turn 2 into a 1/5 Northshire Cleric.
Well, something else that could be possible here is, say, like the Coin Radiant Elemental with Power Word Shield into Shadow Ascendant to try to pressure the 1-keep from Masquade. So in this matchup, Ek0p can expect a number of cards to be kept. Wrath, Wild Growth, and Jade Blossom.
Right.
When he doesn't see Wild Growth on turn 2, that's going to then narrow that Wrath down to exactly Wrath and Jade Blossom. After he sees potentially that it's not Jade Blossom,
he knows it's Wrath.
He knows it's Wrath at that point. So this protects him from the Wrath. It puts more damage on board in face of Wild Growth, and it helps him get to cards like Inner Fire, Divine Spirit, and landing a Shadow Ascendant that is going to prompt Masquade to Wrath at this point. So now if that card is Wrath, what that means is even if Masquade has Jade Blossom, he has to consider deviating.
Look how much damage Ek0p's got coming in the next couple of turns. It's just ridiculous amounts of damage with this Inner Fire.
And now scratch the Wrath. That's not possible anymore.
Yeah, Wrath of that. That's probably what he's saying right now. Wrath of that.
This was a great opening sequence from Ek0p, where I think a lot of players would have just gone for their 1-2 into the egg, and the deviation here provided a lot of benefit for Ek0p in this spot. And then even here, rather than take the free card with the Northshire Cleric, he's going to choose to develop the egg. He wants to get the pressure underway against Masquade.
Right, and now he doesn't even care, well, he doesn't care if this gets Wrath, because that's 2 mana that Masquade can't afford.
Unless he's got Nourish.
He has got Nourish.
I think that might have been the first thing that I would consider a slight misstep from Ek0p, is I would have loved to see that Radiant Elemental trade and represent that Shadow Ascendant staying on board. But he does need to think about spreading plague potential. You know, maybe he wants to trim his board a bit.
I'm just laughing to myself here. Look at this damage that's going to come in this turn from absolutely nowhere. Just an egg. Didn't think we'd see egg ending up in Priest. There's so many classes that you'd expect egg to end up in.
Usually you're the one eating the eggs.
Right.
Not the eggs eating you. This is like that nightmare where the hamburger's eating the people.
Yeah, he's had his chips.
Have you ever had that one?
Hamburgers eating the people.
Yeah.
No, you hate that a lot?
Not a lot, but I feel like a lot of people have had that exact nightmare.
That scares me.
It's very scary.
That's not what I want to happen to me.
It's about as scary as this right now.
Yeah, I haven't seen the meat wagon yet, though.
I mean, Masquade's on the verge of just outright losing to this.
I like the way we're so incredulous. Like, this deck.
I mean, he's playing Jade. Jade Druid's thought to be one of the most powerful decks of all time. And it's getting beat by what looks like just a very strong arena deck.
Beat by somebody's morning meal.
And do you want taunts here to try to preserve life, or do you want poisons to try to threaten board?
I want a hamburger now, even talking about it, actually. I'm off.
Lorenz is just thinking about cheeseburgers. Usually what I'm thinking about.
Not much that... I know kills the egg, it's still a 5/5. And Masquadetv is just sitting here looking at this going, well, I'm kind of lost either way. That's how he feels right now. He hasn't.
Ek0p's Priest deck is the one that's masquerading right now.
Wow. It's masquerading as a real deck.
Yeah, even though it's Masquade. It's like Masquerade.
Hey, we've got to go with what we got.
Is that like Norwegian for Masquerade, maybe?
It is now. We can say things about Norwegian people. We're in Sweden, we're safe.
Well, I could just say whatever I want.
I know.
Right? I thought that was part of the description.
Well,
Masquade's in a lot of trouble.
that is definitely an accurate assessment of this situation. He has got the ultimate comeback available to him in 2 turns' time, but is he going to be too far behind? You need to have some semblance of board to activate it.
I'm thinking that too far behind is going to be the thought here. If I'm in Ek0p spot, I do favor trading the Cabal Talonpriest over Poisonous, but not every time. I do like pushing the damage as well, simply because Masquade's going to be able to clear off basically what he wants, but trading out the Cabal Talonpriest means that you're going to have either the Radiant Elemental or the Scalebane left to be dealt with. And so it comes at the cost of 3 damage. But Ek0p is going to take that one step further and say, you know what? I think that you're going to kill this Radiant Elemental sometimes, and so I'm going to push it there. But if you're going to trade one, you might as well trade the egg as well. And this was the other point that I was going to make with this, is that now he eliminates the possibility of any 3 of his big minions being killed. However, that does make him a bit weaker versus Spreading Plague exactly.
It does, but on this occasion, I mean, it's a much-needed speed bump, but it is only a speed bump into that Ultimate Infestation.
That's the benefit of having the mid-sized minion package that most of the aggressive decks have started to move towards, is that it negates the value of Spreading Plague by a considerable amount. And that card actually being slowed down by 1 mana from its release form was a big point of that.
Right.
Before Spreading Plague would come down, before you had the opportunity to find a way to take advantage of a Cobalt Scalebane. And since it was moved up by 1 mana, it opened up stuff like Star Knight Chain Gang into Cobalt Scalebane, which allowed you to play Cairn, which allows you to play Bone.
Yeah, it just gives you that counterplay that there wasn't available already before.
That 1 mana change was a catalyst to a lot of the way the minion packages have been built in these aggressive decks.
And if you don't believe us that 1 mana's a lot, take 1 mana off your favorite card and look how ridiculous it is.
Or just add
even Magma Rager.
Add 1 mana to your favorite card.
And then good luck. Good luck playing it, yeah. Even Magma Rager, 5-1 for 2? I'd play that card.
That'd be pretty good.
It'd be all right, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
One of the worst cards in the game. So yeah, 1 mana is absolutely huge. I think people do sometimes forget that. It's not quite as huge on expensive minions, but it's still huge.
And now, Ek0p with the Cairn hitting the board, I'm curious if he's still favoring any board combat, or if he just wants to start pushing. I mean, his board has been undealt with on this turn. All that's happened is Masquade has built board tension into it, but we are moving into the Ultimate Infestation turn, which I'm quite confident Ek0p believes is there.
Yeah, and you've got to play as if it's there. If it's not there, you're probably going to win anyway, so you might as well play around it. It's been a bit of a clinic as well in tempo versus value. There's been that Northshire Cleric able to draw cards in his hand the entire game. And
he kept that card.
Yeah.
Didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He kept it. And then he just didn't play it. But it's come up that he can put so much pressure on that he feels his hand gets there. He doesn't need those extra cards in his mind.
And the push here was the big telling point of this. You know, for those of you at home who wonder, when should I keep trading and when should I start going face? I think the first spot you look at is, number 1, do you have a powerful minion on board? If the answer is yes, question number 2 is, does your opponent deck have the ability to kill minions? If the answer to that is yes, number 3 is, did my opponent kill this important minion, or do they now have an important minion to kill? If the answer to all 3 of those happens to be yes, yes, and then no, start pushing damage.
That's exactly what Boar Control did in Game 2 against Show. When he knew there was no way of killing those things, he just put more and more stuff out there. So Masquade's just... It's one of those ropes where you're roping because you can't find an answer, not because you've got a good selection of choices. Sometimes the rope is, oh, what's my best play here? I'll default to a good one because when the timer goes. But this is, how do I not die?
Yeah, the answer to that is Spreading Plague. It looks like.
And now Ek0p will have to
Masquade, though, it looks like he's unhappy with this sequence here. The Aya could have traded into the Cairn to try to peel some damage off board, and then the Spreading Plague would have gotten a little bit of value. In this instance, he pans out close to the same way, but in this spot, he chose to kill the Radiant Elemental over killing the Scalebane. And so I'm curious if that cost him in this spot. Ek0p finds Silence, and that means that he's got enough to deliver lethal on Masquade because he's only got 2 taunts on board. I don't think there was a way to slice that where Masquade came out far ahead, though, in that situation. And so now with a 2-0 lead, and Ek0p playing this wild deck, which has been called Breakfast Priest due to the eggs that are available.
Yeah, and originally there was Meat Wagon in there as well at some point. I don't think it looks like it's in there at the moment. But
I mean, Meat Wagon, it's Meat Wagon.
Hey, fetch your eggs.
Yeah, but it's meat wagon.
So this is like more of a continental breakfast.
Just the eggs.
Just the eggs.
And some bread to go with it.
Yeah. Omelette priest.
Put an egg between a couple of... I don't know, what's the bread, I guess?
I don't know, but it looks like his opponent has had his toast in this one.
Or that he is toast. Oh, that's the bread, your opponent.
Your opponent's toast.
You use them to make the sandwich.
Ah.
And then you eat them. That's the nightmare. It's the
oh my goodness, the
people.
nightmare's back. Okay. So there's going to be a game 3, thankfully, to stop us.
Well, he's got Rogue on deck, but I'm not familiar with this matchup in particular. And my instinct tells me that Rogue should do quite strong in this matchup.
Yeah, I feel the same way, but he chose to queue the Druid second. Maybe he hasn't run into this many times.
My instinct is that the Druid would perform quite well versus that as well.
Yeah, I feel that the Rogue has more ways of coping with that early tempo, though, whereas the Druid, as we saw, it hasn't really got good things to deal with.
Well, we did see Galactic Crawlers throughout the matchup, so that is a tech choice that Ek0p has made as a nod to this deck. And Masquade's going to hang on to Firefly and Tar Creeper alongside this Prince Keleseth. I'm curious how important a turn 1 play is in the matchup. I would say Firefly is one of the more important ones due to the nature of comboing the second piece. The Keleseth, obviously, of utmost importance. But if I'm going to keep Firefly, I think Coldblood's a totally fine keep.
Yeah, it's a good way of dealing with all these 5 health minions at some point.
Exactly.
4+1 being a good number there.
Being able to trade over a 0/3 egg and then just kill the Devilsaur out of it with a Firefly sounds like a good deal to me.
And this is going to be a bit more of a struggle for Ek0p. He hasn't drawn that crazy early start like he has in the other 2 games.
Well, I think quite wise to tempo out the Shadow Ascendant here as well. So now it puts pressure on Masquade to either answer this immediately or the threat of Cabal Talon Priest becomes a real thing. So if he chooses to go with Keleseth here, this could be a problem. If he'd coined the Keleseth, this would not be an issue.
But if he chooses not to go with Keleseth here, that's also a problem because you need that buff. This game may only be 7 turns.
I've seen the world's best play Keleseth over Tar Creepers and South Sea Captains with patches in the deck.
Right.
On the 3-mana turn.
But this is, yeah, like you said, this is so risky if you do it and there's an egg in Ek0p's hand, and you've got to expect it because it's in his hand every time.
Talon Priest, I think, is the big one he needs to dodge here, and it's in Ek0p's hand. So Keleseth is quite good, and he preserves the coin for Vilespine in this spot. I don't think the dagger's that bad here, though.
I think I prefer the dagger. We saw, again, I keep going back to that first match, but we haven't got many reference points yet. Board Control's use of that dagger was exceptional in game 1.
It is very tough to not play the Keleseth here. And in fact, I think I would have played the Keleseth if I had been in this particular spot.
But would you have coined it out on turn 1 in the first place to not be in that situation?
Well, now here's an interesting prospect for you as well on the Coldblood. When does that get used?
I mean,
I think I like the setup that Masquade's getting here with the Tar Creeper, is that it's presenting Ek0p with a board where he won't necessarily attack next turn, and so Masquade gets to land the big Vilespine. Backing up the big Vilespine is a major deal because he's got the Scalebane to go with it. So he's firing on all the cylinders his deck is meant to right now, except for Backstab.
What's really strange about Ek0p's deck here is it's playing like a totally different deck. It's playing like a rogue deck, basically, now with the curve it's picked up. And yet the first 2 games, he almost out-druided Druid for mana. Like his 4-mana cards were just better than the Druid's 8-mana cards.
Wow. So now we're getting to the abandon the potential for huge value turns from Ek0p, and instead he's going to have to fight a more fair fight. But that Power Word Shield allowed him to trade over the Tar Creeper very effectively, and that means that it helps nullify the edge that Vilespine was expected to grab in this spot.
I'm just staring at this board and wondering how he's managed to do it again, even without the egg stuff going on.
Shadow Ascendant unchecked.
Seems like it works well if that happens.
Cabal Talon Priest is one of the best cards in the game. The problem with it is the prerequisite. I mean, Priest doesn't have a lot of class-specific minions that fight super well in the early game, and it can't utilize stuff like Firefly as well as most of the other aggressive classes can. So Cabal Talon Priest is just a difficult card to get value from, but this is the spot to do it.
You might as well kill this because all the other big minions are going to come back as 5/5, so let's get rid of this one. And this is going to be
Shadow Ascendant.
Decent swing. Can he keep swinging these? You have to swing 3 and 4 more turns in a row.
The thing I'm seeing here, too, is the Shadow Ascendant is so good with the Scalebane. It buffs the Scalebane to 6/6, and then the Shadow Ascendant becomes 5 power. So it'll contest the Vile Spine, which is meant to threaten it, and then the Scalebane is outside of the range of the easy Cold Blood with the Firefly.
Barnes. Who drafted this deck and decided to play it in Constructed? Just...
Barnes is quite good in this deck.
It really is.
You have Scalebanes, you got Cairn, you have the Tortolans, you have Shadow Ascendants, sometimes Northshire Cleric.
How do they get these 45 cards into this deck?
That's what I'm thinking.
Like, what isn't in here that it feels like is in there? Is it like just one of everything?
Shadow Word Death and Shadow Word Pain look like they're not in here.
Yeah. Yeah, the Pain's an interesting omission, actually, but yeah, they can't be in there. Which, of course, just makes your Shadow Visions that much more powerful when you've only got 3 or 4 spells in your deck that you're looking for.
Finally, Masquade looks like he might get a little breathing room here. Serenite Chain Gang is very powerful.
Yeah, especially this deck. Ek0p's deck is only putting sort of 2 or 3 threats down at once. It's not really going mega wide. The casting costs are just too high for that, so the ability to fend them off for a little while Masquade tries to find some of his bigger stuff. But Ek0p just smashing away.
I was thinking the Cold Blood here was quite fine for Masquade. You know, Ek0p's clearly been struggling to play a lot of stuff. His hand feels quite heavy, so that means he might not have the availability to actually heal on this next turn. And so now the question for Ek0p is, do I want to either play a Taunt and heal? Do I want to play Barnes and heal? Do I want to play Northshire and heal? Or do I want to play Cairn? You know, this is a lot for Ek0p to think about over the next turn or so, and see how he gets the clean board for his Bone Mare.
So I don't think you care about the Northshire at this point because you can't cast the cards in your hand as it is without drawing more. You'd love more cards. You always want more cards if they come around, but in this situation, it's going to be too hard to use those cards.
I quite like the Tortolan here. It's protecting your Shadow Ascendant from getting eaten by the other Saronite Chain Gang. It's threatening the other Saronite Chain Gang. And this means that you're going to be able to secure a board 100% of the time with the Cairn next turn. You will always be landing a Bone Mare.
Running out of ways to say how bad Patches is as a draw in these situations. I mean, sometimes you can say, oh, it kills the 2. Yeah, exactly. We've said it too many times. That's the last way you can actually say it.
Now, Leroy is a 7/7. Or a 7 power. I'm sorry, 7/7. It's a 7/3 in this spot.
Yeah.
So Masquade can actually clear off the big minions, but what happens is he leaves behind a 1/1 if he patches the other. The question here is, would you rather leave the Shadow Ascendant up and clear off the other 2 minions, or would you rather... the buff now doesn't fall on Shadow Ascendant 100% of the time. So sometimes the patches trades in.
Okay.
That's what made this play so strong. Gives up Bone Mare in this spot, though, and there just wasn't a way for him to really get around that.
Yeah, that Shadow Ascendant, look at the damage it's done. Just look at the hands. That's the damage the Shadow Ascendant has done by sitting around for 4 or 5 turns. It's enabled the trades to be so powerful for Ek0p that he's just whittled the hand down from Masquerade.
Mind you, this is against Keliseth that this is happening as well.
Yeah. That's pretty terrifying. That should be some incremental advantage for the Rogue, not the other guy.
Nice pickup with the SI7 agent here, but...
Justice is mine.
That Divine Spirit is looking awfully good.
And that's something about Divine Spirit that I think has been known by arena players forever, but even though it's not that great on its own, it does have some advantages sometimes to just make a minion into an unkillable stick. He's already seen one of the Vile Spines. That's the only thing he has to worry about here.
And he's looking like that he's going to try to find that other Vile Spine before he plays Lich King.
Yeah, why not? Why not test for it? Because if Lich King sticks the board, well, you played the adventure, right? It's hard.
I mean, what can stick to the board here for Ek0p that doesn't result in a massively favorable position?
Oh no. Masquade's face tells it all.
Left in his deck.
And now Ek0p, who hasn't done any damage to face in the entire game, will clear up these remaining minions most likely. Now, he may not even need to. He probably has to clear up the Scalebane.
I think he keeps clearing. I mean, as long as he's choked out the options for Masquade, there's not really the big refill your hand mechanic for Rogue. They win the game via incremental advantage and via the windows of opportunity to push burst. Neither of those opportunities have been realized for Masquade yet.
And when the end comes, it will come fast. These 5/5s will kill you really quickly. Not a single egg being drawn in this game. Just played it like a hodgepodge curve deck.
Oh my gosh.
Are we going to rebrand him Ek0p?
You are a genius.
We've got this now, right?
You are a genius, Lorenzo. Ah, the bone mares are the bread.
Bread. Cairn sandwich. We're going to have to
get... What? He drew the two burst card slabs in his deck.
That's... And even before that wasn't good. He grew patches into Shadow Step and 3 consecutive turns. And he's pressing the right button right now.
Wrap it up.
3-0s it. And Raven has slunk alongside.
Yeah, absolutely incredible there. Thumbs up from Ek0p as he does take the win there. 3-0 with the Breakfast Priest.
You did call it.
I was excited to see this, and it's one thing I do love about DreamHack is that the field is wide enough that, you know, it wasn't honestly too much of a surprise to see someone bring this deck. You know, someone's going to give it a try. It's had success on ladder in the past. So, yeah, I'm excited to see it. And to be honest, I think there was a big issue there, especially in that last game where... basically, the Ascendant wasn't traded into on turn 2. It could have just been dagger trade. Because the whole problem with the Breakfast Priest is if you lose the board, you can't get it back, actually. That's just game. Because there's nothing to actually claw back on. There's no AoE or anything like that in the deck.
You literally rely on Barnes or the Tortolans.
Yeah, and that's a big reliance on a 2-4, right? So, in not trading, actually just gave Ek0p saying, well, okay, now I just play the Talon Priest. And now you can't trade into either of them, and then so on, and you can see how it snowballed, even with, you know, a couple of, say, awkward draws with those Shadow Steps at the very end. I don't think even if he drew, you know, a playable minion, it would have made much difference after Cairn hitting the board.
There are two things that made a big factor. Number one was the failure to kill the Shadow Ascendant on turn 2. Which could have been done either by coining the Kaliseth or by using Dagger. And then number 2 was the return value on Vile Spine rather than the actual value on Vile Spine. If he had gotten a real tempo swing plus the benefit on the Vile Spine, I think he would have had some real game there. But the problem was that he was returning that value to bring it back to even instead of getting ahead.
Yeah, I think Vile Spine's a huge card in there, and in beating a lot of matchups, actually. The second you can get just one good Vile Spine, especially if it's close, in board-focused decks like both of those are, you can actually just reverse the game and win the game off the back of that. But, you know, what do you think of both series there, Lorinda? You know, we had Ball Control versus Show to kick off round 1.
Yeah, and that was a very exciting series. I think we saw the pure Hearthstone at the moment. The stuff that the 60% will be bringing to this tournament. We'll show on highlight there. And Show... just that 4th deck, the Paladin can't get it done for board, and then Show's ended up with this Priest versus Druid. We're going to see that a lot, and the Druid just wins that matchup. But the Ek0p match was insane to see it just go plowing through the entire lineup.
Yeah, and I do like it because, again, it may be less impactful now that Ek0p's actually been on stream with that deck, but imagine if he dodged stream and no one really knew for like 4 rounds.
I think word gets out, that's the thing.
It does, but not to everyone, right? You know, a lot of the players know each other, but there are groups, right? And it's not like every player talks to every single other player after every round.
Yeah.
So you could actually make it at least 3 to 4 rounds in with that Priest information hidden.
It's not quite like high school where the gossip gets around in, you know, the next 3 hours or so. But him being on stream in round number 1 here, I think it is a detriment to his surprise factor, but I think that he would prefer to be on stream winning in this fashion than he would to be off stream.
Don't get me wrong, I don't think Ek0p will be upset with doing what he just did on stream, but it does give the people he's going to face going forward just a little bit of an extra boost in knowing that that Priest may become bannable, or at least just being able to mulligan for it and think about the deck list. Maybe you can check the deck list for those players that I think there'll be a lot of players who aren't that experienced with it. I mean, his opponent, it didn't actually look like he fully understood how the deck worked because he had options, right, to actually shut down the Breakfast Priest. There are still some matches being played in round number 1, so we're just going to be finishing those up, and we're going to be bringing you round number 2 as soon as possible once we get all the matches set up and ready to go. So this is the Hearthstone Grand Prix here at Jönköping, Sweden. DreamHack Winter. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with round 2.